5 Fundamentals of Healthy Living. I'm Seth.
I'm Anne.
And we're glad to have you with us again today. So we have so far gone through 4 of the 5 fundamentals. And just a really quick recap of those 4, it is praying with real intent, feasting upon the words of Christ, having a healthy sleep pattern, and regular exercise. So today we're going to talk about the 5th step, which is good personal hygiene.
Good personal hygiene. What does that mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's the obvious things, right? It's taking care of your physical body, right?
Right. So taking a shower, brushing your teeth, brushing your hair, those things. I was subbing this week, and middle schoolers are not very good at personal hygiene.
Oh, well, oftentimes not. What's interesting, though, I'll tell you something that's really interesting about children, especially teenagers, or young, older children and younger teenagers.
As they're going into puberty.
Yeah, is oftentimes you get really stinky feet, and it doesn't matter that they shower every day and they wash their feet. And you know, my son the other day had his feet were smelling pretty bad, and he went and washed them really good in the bathtub. And I remember doing that. I remember feeling a little self-conscious about how badly my feet smelled. And it was frustrating because I showered every day and I washed my feet when I showered, and I remember like halfway through the day I'd take off my shoes and socks and go sit on the side of the bathtub and put my feet in the tub and scrub. So sometimes I think we think somebody's not taking good care of their hygiene, but they're doing the best they can. And I think you have to remember that, you know, so.
Give them grace.
Yes, give them grace, and especially when you're talking about these teenagers that are going through puberty, because their bodies are changing, and there are smells that come. There are teenage smells that are not a result of not taking care of yourself. They're just your body is going through these changes, hormones are going crazy, and you're creating these, you know, fluids and, you know, that your body is not used to, and
right,
so it's creating some smells that are not always pleasant. And that doesn't mean they're not taking care of themselves. It just means that, you know, we have to recognize that happens. However, having said that, it's really important that we recognize, and this is what really surprised me sometimes, is how often I talk with people about these 5 fundamentals, and my hypothesis when I first started teaching this tool was that level 5 or you know, number 5, this personal hygiene, most everybody would be already doing it. And it wouldn't even I wouldn't even need to, you know, make goals, because it'd be like, you're already doing this one, but you know, we just bring it up because it's there. And I was shocked at how many people are not doing basic hygiene. They're not brushing their teeth regularly, they're not showering regularly, they're not taking care of their hair. I was like, wow.
Do you think that, I know that if someone is depressed, they often have a hard time with just that extra task. I have been known to not brush my hair. I remember one time at girls' camp, my niece and I said, I don't remember the last time I brushed my hair. And she said, neither do I, but it was, you know, a week of girls' camp. So.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and the interesting thing is, yes, depression, anxiety, both can really lower our energy level, and like you say, even just getting up to take a shower can be really difficult, or brushing your teeth. That added thing is just too much. What surprised me is how many people who don't have those kinds of problems are struggling with some of these basic hygiene issues, you know.
So why is hygiene part of the fundamental list?
Well, I think it goes back to the thing we talked about last week about our bodies being a temple. And we have to take care of that temple, right? If we want. It's really interesting. You know, I as a young man, as a older teenager, and then again as a young man, I visited several church history sites. And I lived up in Maine, and so some of those church history sites were closer.
Mhm.
And I was able to go and visit those on a semi-regular basis.
Mhm.
But what was really fascinating is that, you know, we would go to Joseph Smith's birthplace. We would go to Palmyra, New York, you know, where the first vision was. We would go to these different places.
Yeah.
And you could feel the Spirit very strongly when you would go and visit, and they would talk to us about it, and you could see how much care has gone into those sites
Mhm.
to keep them clean,
Mhm.
to keep them, you know, really pristine.
Yeah, they're
Right.
wonderful places to visit.
But what's really fascinating is then I would go to the Kirtland Temple, which was not owned by the church and was not maintained by the
Mhm.
church. And it looks kind of run down, and it feels kind of run down.
Right.
And the Spirit is not the same.
It isn't exactly.
And,
That's
and
true. I've been to both of those places. I've been to those places too, and the spirit is completely different. But you do hear that the church just
they just purchased the
those.
Kirtland Temple. It was so exciting. But the thing is, the reason I was bringing that up is I was just talking to somebody yesterday, I think, and he was telling me that he had just gotten back from a church history visit, and he was telling me the same thing. He said, "Wow, it was really strange." It's like I expected the Kirtland Temple to have the strongest spirit of all of these sites, and he said it just didn't. And the reason is because it has not been cared for properly the way a temple needs to be cared for, to invite the Spirit of the Lord to be there.
Mhm.
So really that is why these final two fundamentals exist, because our bodies are the house of the Lord.
Right.
And to invite the Spirit in, we have to maintain cleanliness and order.
Isn't there something in the Doctrine and Covenants about cleanliness? Or is that
Cleanliness
just,
is close to godliness.
yes,
right?
but is that just a phrase, or is that in
It
the
is.
scriptures?
It's in one of the scriptures, and I don't remember which
Yeah,
one.
I
You
don't
might have to
either.
look it up and put it in the notes of this class so you can see where it is. But cleanliness is close to godliness or nigh unto godliness, or I'm not sure the exact wording, but it basically is cleanliness is close to godliness. Also, God in the scriptures tells us that He is a God of order, and that all things need to be done in order. And I think when you think about that personal hygiene is a part of that order of
Right.
cleanliness.
Right.
There's an order of cleanliness, just like there's an order for all things in their order. And cleanliness is a part of that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too that cleanliness is, or hygiene is different in different parts of the world.
Mm-hmm.
We had a French exchange student, and when her father came to visit at the end of her time, he just used a lot of perfume. I'm not sure he was showering and
Well, it's a
those
very,
kinds of things.
very,
So different countries and different places in the world have different ideas of hygiene. The Japanese people, for example, are really, really clean, and they.
well, you have to consider too, and it's really, something that's really fascinating to me, and this is kind of a historical fact, that people historically wore linens, clothes that were made from more natural materials than what we tend to wear, cottons, linens,
Mhm,
you know.
mhm.
Those clothes actually absorb a lot of sweat and stuff.
Better.
They breathe better, they absorb and release.
Mhm.
Whereas the clothes that we tend to wear, it absorbs but doesn't ever release anything. So it's just sticks to
Yeah.
us. You know, and so somebody in the past who maybe took a full bath once a week, and people have this idea sometimes that the people in the past weren't clean. That's not true. They took regular, they regularly washed up. They had their toilet, what they would call their toilet,
Right.
and they would regularly wash up and wash the parts of their bodies that, that needed it. But they would take a full bath about once a week. But they also wore clothing that allowed for that.
Mhm.
Whereas we tend to wear clothing that in a single day our clothes get really filthy and smelly and gross, and it would not be very comfortable to wear them 2 or 3 days in a row.
Our clothes are much easier to take care of, though,
Yes.
with all of the, unnatural fibers.
Right, right. But we have technologies and things that make it easy to wash and care
Mhm.
for clothes, and it's true. So, but the point is, hygiene is not the same for everybody, but hygiene is essential. Personal cleanliness, the Lord wants us to stay clean and to be clean. And so, but it's not just that, right?
Right.
Cleanliness is important, but there's more to it. For example, if we took the temple and we cleaned it every day, it's still going to have some wear and tear,
Mhm.
and we're still going to need to, every couple of years they close the temple down to refurnish and take out all the
Right.
carpet and put in
Put
new
in new
carpet. They
carpet.
take out all the furniture and bring in new furniture,
Mhm.
because you need not only the inner sense of cleanliness, but the outer sense of cleanliness. And I think, and that makes me think of like our clothing. What are we wearing? Am I wearing, worn out, holy, things, or am I trying to maintain? And not everybody can maintain the same level, of nice clothing or
Right,
whatever.
right.
But there are very few people who have to wear worn out holy clothes.
Mhm. Well, and we've talked about wearing clothes that are appropriate for the situation that you're in too.
And I think that's probably the biggest part of hygiene that people forget,
Mhm.
and especially in our modern culture, in our modern society. And in fact, I think our modern society kind of rejects that form of hygiene.
Right.
That there is an appropriate attire for each different activity that you're participating in. And so for example, I went last summer. I went to an opera with my wife. Took my wife to an opera in St. Louis, and it was beautiful. It was wonderful, but it was fascinating to me how many people were wearing different things. So some people were wearing very formal clothes, to it.
Right.
And I tend to like to wear more formal, so I wore a white shirt and a tie and my slacks and a suit coat, and I thought that was the appropriate attire. Now I wouldn't have minded if people were wearing just a button shirt and slacks, man. But there were a number of people that were there in shorts and a t-shirt
Mhm.
and flip-flops,
Mhm. Wow.
and I thought that doesn't feel like the right attire
Mhm.
for this event.
Right.
Right? And when I go to church, I wear a white shirt, tie, slacks, and a suit coat, right? Because
Mhm.
it feels like the right attire. And if somebody comes in and they're not dressed that way, I'm not gonna judge them and send them out. But I am hopeful that if somebody comes to church after a short while, that they will have a desire to dress in an appropriate way.
Right, and that's what I've seen, is that usually we want people to come to church, and if they don't have anything else, then we want them there.
Right.
But as they come to church and they learn why they're dressing in an appropriate way,
Mm-hmm.
they change, and then they start coming dressed to praise God.
Right. But I think the other thing, what I want people to really get from this is that what we wear reflects who we are. And if you want to be a temple of God, right, you want your body to be that house of the Lord where the Holy Spirit can reside in conjunction with your own spirit, then we need to dress accordingly. We need to be that kind of person.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that by dressing well, it helps you to feel better about yourself. And it helps you to be closer to God. It helps you to, I know my daughter, when she used to have a test at school, when she was going to college, she would dress up on test
Mhm.
days instead of wearing slouchy, comfortable clothes,
Yeah,
because it helped her personally remember things and feel better about herself.
absolutely. And I think it's interesting because I think one of the things that's really pretty evident in the workforce is companies that have a dress code, they tend to have more productive workers.
Mm.
Companies that don't have a dress code and allow people to come in just whatever they want to come in, they tend to be less efficient. And the people who work for them tend to, and interestingly enough, the people who work for them tend to have a lower, what do you call it? Like their lower work satisfaction.
Okay,
Then-
so they're not as happy with their
Right,
job.
they're not as happy with their job or the company.
Mhm.
Whereas companies that have a dress code tend to have a higher satisfaction rate among employees.
That's interesting.
They're both more efficient and effective at their jobs, but they also tend to have a higher loyalty rate to the company that they work for.
Hmm.
And so it's a really fascinating phenomena that you get when you have that dress code.
Right.
And a dress code doesn't have to mean you dress in a shirt and tie or dress in a nice blouse, but it can mean, we want you to look nice when you come in, so we don't want shorts and flip-flops. We want you to wear, pants and a nice shirt
Mhm.
and shoes, closed-toed shoes.
Yeah.
Also, some companies have a higher dress standard than that. And actually, it is actually true that the higher the dress standard tends to have a higher satisfaction with the company and the work. But I tend to think part of that is those people are choosing a company that fits what they want. And so,
Right.
they're happier
Right.
because they've found a company that fits more of their own standards. But
Yeah.
but it's just interesting that, and the other thing is, I do a lot of work with women who stay at home,
Mhm.
either work from home or they are homemakers, and they make that their career. And oftentimes when they're starting to feel down and low and bedraggled and beat up, and they just they don't know what to do, and oftentimes I can tell them, I say, well, the first thing you need to do is get up early, shower, brush your teeth, do your hair. And they're like, but nobody's going to see me. You're going to see you. God is going to see you.
Right, right.
Get dressed. Put on nice clothes. Don't just throw on whatever. Put on, be intentional.
That's hard though, because when you have a baby
Mhm.
and a bunch of little children and they're making messes all over you,
Yep.
then you don't want your clothes to be really nice. But I
Right,
think
right,
I think that not like slouchy, like
Right,
Like,
right. You don't have to wear really nice clothes, but you should wear, get out of your pajamas.
right.
Get dressed.
I think about like some of the old TV sitcoms of the 60s. I used to love Bewitched. And she always looked nice.
Yeah.
She, those old sitcoms, they would not go out without their gloves and their hat and their dress. And it's a different time now. We've changed. But I remember my grandma doing the same thing. We were going to go out and she came out wearing something and she said, "You cannot go out with me wearing that. You need to get something nicer on." And we've kind of lost that in our
And as I
society.
say, I don't know that we've changed for the better. I think
Yeah.
we've changed.
Oh, we're just so relaxed and slouchy.
Yeah, we're way too relaxed, way too slouchy, and I think the correlation is, as our society relaxes, our mental health issues increase.
Oh, that's an interesting
And
correlation.
That's a very obvious correlation,
Right.
right? We know that the mental health issues in the United States, at least, are well above what they were 20, 30 years ago. We
Mhm.
also know that people have become much more relaxed in their hygiene,
Yeah.
in how they take care of their bodies.
Right, Right.
and what they'll do. And so it's a fascinating correlation. And of course, it's not a causation, which we're not saying this is the cause of it, but it is correlation. And
Mhm.
correlations are important to look at and to understand that, you know, maybe there's something, a third factor that's influencing both of those.
Mhm.
But I think it's clear that with the, with giving up these formalities, we have lost some of our ability to cope with life. Isn't that a kind of amazing thought? That what you wear affects how well you cope with everyday life problems? But it does.
That is, I don't think that most people think about it. Most people just want to be comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I think that we've gotten into more of a comfortable stage. But that is an interesting correlation that the slouchier we look, the more
The more mental health issues
Mental health
we
issues.
experience as a society.
Yeah, I want to go back to the moms
Mhm.
who have trouble with more depression and things like that, getting going and moving. I think that each one of these, you said that they should get up early, they should exercise, they should have good hygiene, but they should also be praying
And reading their scriptures on a regular basis, yes.
and by just doing that, doing these 5 fundamentals, it helps not just moms with a bunch of kids, but I think it helps everybody.
Oh, absolutely. I worked with a man for a while ago. He came into my office. It's funny because he came into my office like, why should I listen to you? I make $1 million a year. He's like, well, I don't. Don't make anywhere close to that. Well, I don't know why you're listening to me. But you came in to talk to me. I didn't come in to talk to you. Anyways,
I didn't call you and say, come in.
Yeah. So but he was struggling with similar things. He was, you know, he had a business, obviously a very successful business, but he was overwhelmed and stressed, and you know, he wasn't being able to maintain a good family work balance. Right, his balance was just way off, and really with that man, because especially at the time I wasn't working as a Christian counselor. I was in school still. So this was years ago. But I did. What I told him, I said, you know, it really matters when you get out of bed. It matters what you wear, and it matters what you're doing physically with your body. And so we got him onto a new routine, getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and going on and exercising, and then taking care of his hygiene and making sure that because he was the owner of this company, so he got to a point. So while he was building the company, he would always dress nicely.
Right.
But at this point, he owned this company. He had somebody else that was basically running it. He didn't really have to be there every day,
Mm-hmm.
and he got kind of complacent and lazy about it. Now he would go into work every day, but he started, you know, he used to wear a shirt and tie and a suit, and then he stopped wearing the suit coat, and then he stopped wearing the tie, and then he started wearing but he kept getting less and less and less. And by the time he came to see me, he was going into work usually in jeans and a t-shirt.
Yeah, it reminded me of Sabrina, the movie
Mm-hmm.
Sabrina.
Yeah.
And how the younger brother kind of, you know, just didn't really take.
Right. Yeah.
What am I trying to say?
Well, he didn't take his personal hygiene seriously.
Right.
You know, not that he didn't. Like I say, sometimes we keep ourselves clean, but on the the physical body, but we don't attire ourselves appropriately, and we just and that's what this business guy, what he realized was, and once he started doing these things, he got really happy again, and he was just.
Well, he probably had more
energy.
Goals and more.
Yeah, well, he had energy, and he found that when he dressed up nicely, that his wife was more appreciative, and that he was, and when she was more appreciative, then he had a desire to be home with her more. So he stopped spending quite so many hours at the business because he didn't need to be there so often.
Right.
Started spending more time with his wife and his kids, and it just, his whole life became better because he started taking care of himself again. And
It's such a little teeny tiny thing.
it is, and yet it's
But sometimes
huge.
it's so hard. I know there are times when, I don't want to get out of bed and I don't want to get up and shower. And the whole changing clothes 3 times drives me crazy sometimes. You get up, you get into exercise clothes, then you take a shower, and then you change into something else.
Right?
And
Yeah.
especially when you're a young mom, once again.
Right, and
You don't have time for that.
Teenagers have this tendency also to go to bed in the clothes that they wore during the day. And again, bad hygiene, right?
My mom used to say, that is the height of laziness.
Yeah, and I don't know how lazy or not. What it is it's poor hygiene.
Right.
It is not the appropriate. If I'm going to go play a game of basketball, I'm not going to wear a button shirt and slacks.
Right.
That wouldn't be appropriate attire. When I go to bed, I'm not going to wear a button shirt and slacks. It's not appropriate attire. And it does lead to less cleanliness, right?
Right. Well, it's once again the clothes that are keeping all of the, you taking care of those clothes and making a mess of I don't know, just the sweat that happens and
Yeah.
perspiration, and I should say.
So personal hygiene, that's our 5th one. So let's kind of recap
Okay.
and just say, so, and really one of the word that I use in the first of the fundamentals is intent, right? Pray
Right.
with intent.
Pray with intent.
But what I want you to recognize is everything we do should be with intent. We should be making conscious choices about what we're doing constantly, all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that is intent. We should be praying with intent, right? That
Right.
meaning what we're praying about, we intend to do something about it, right? It's
Right.
not just, we're just rattling a bunch of words off, or even that, we're handing off to God what we're, what we
can
want.
do. Right. What we
But-
want.
and what we
Yeah.
can do, we're saying we're making a contract with the Lord every day,
Mhm.
a covenant between the Lord and ourselves about what we're going to do, and asking that He will pick up where we can't.
Right.
And that's where, and so that's praying with intent. But I want that word intent to be in your minds through all 5.
All 5.
All 5, because everything that we do should be with intent. So number 2 was feast on the words of Christ, right?
And that's pretty intentional when you say feast.
Right, yeah, this needs to be with real intent. We need to be searching, pondering, praying as we read the words of of Jesus Christ and His apostles and prophets. And that, of course, can be, in any form.
Right.
Whether it's from the scriptures, whether it's from modern day prophets and apostles, whether it's from hymns, whether it's from, there's any number of ways that we can feast upon the words of Christ. But we need to do that intentionally, with real intent.
Mm-hmm.
And then number 3 is a healthy sleep pattern. And really, I don't even remember all the things we talked about in the discussion, but what really is the most important is getting up at the same time every day. Now,
And
along
going to
with,
bed at about the same time too, right?
well, that's the next most important.
Okay.
The most important is getting up at the same time every day. The second most important thing is that we're going to bed within about an hour. So if my bedtime is 9:30, I'm going to be in bed between 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock.
Mhm.
So it's good. Bedtime usually, I recommend an hour window because that flexibility is going to be important for your success.
Right. Yeah, sometimes you just can't go to sleep right away.
Right. And so you want to give yourself a little bit of flexibility there. But the other thing about that one is, when we say pattern, that's what we're talking about. That means, what am I doing to prepare my body to rest?
Mm-hmm.
Am I just working right up to 9:30 and then I'm in bed? That's not a good pattern. We want a healthy sleep pattern.
Well, you need a routine.
Mm-hmm.
Like you with small children, when
Right.
you're teaching them to sleep. you have a routine with them.
Right.
And adults need routines
And
also.
you should do that for yourself. You should give yourself a routine, and you should also create an ambiance within your sleeping space that is conducive to sleep. And that could mean listening to quiet music. It could mean having white noise on.
Mhm.
It could mean having a weighted blanket for some people. That's really comforting and really helpful to sleep. It could mean there's any having a scent in that room, like
A lavender.
a lavender or a peppermint or something that is relaxing to you. So any of these things can be very helpful to creating a healthy sleep pattern.
Right.
So then our next one is regular exercise. And this is where we really started to really get into our temple. I mean, our body is a temple. It literally is the house of the Lord if we keep it clean and orderly.
Right.
And exercise is the first part of that, because that's what cleans internally our body, to get the blood pumping and moving through our body, cleaning out those toxins and bringing in the fresh air from outside, just keeping our body fresh and clean.
Circulating all of that stuff that needs to be circulated.
Yeah, exactly. And so exercise, and we talked about exercise being a minimum of 90 minutes a day of getting your heart rate up.
Is it 90 minutes a day?
Oh, 90 minutes a week.
90 minutes a week.
That's the minimum. I recommend more than that if you're already exercising.
Yeah, because these are the foundation. I was
Right.
thinking that, it's just like when you're laying blocks for a block, when you're playing with blocks,
Mhm.
you have to have these 5 little blocks at the bottom,
Right, you want.
and then you can add
Yep, you're gonna
to
have.
that.
Right, you're gonna have something at the bottom, and the bottom has to be firm and
It has to be a
and
strong
sound.
foundation.
So,
Mhm.
and then our final, what we've talked about today is hygiene, and that keeping the outer cleanliness, right? So the exercise helps clean internally. The hygiene keeps the outside of our temple clean.
Clean.
And remember, you're a disciple of Jesus Christ. What are you saying about Jesus Christ in the way you appear?
Yeah.
That's the thing you have to remember. As a disciple of Jesus Christ, you are an emissary for Jesus Christ. And so what people see in you is what they will think of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, when you think of the missionaries who are emissaries, they always they have rules that they have to follow
Right. Very good
For-
hygiene.
for hygiene.
Yeah, absolutely. So those are the 5 fundamentals of healthy living. And what it really is they are the foundation for a healthy life. They are not everything for health, but they are the foundation. And here's the thing. Here's another thing that's really interesting. Somebody might want to lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to lose weight, you need to be doing these foundational things first. And then we can add on other things like nutrition or drinking the right amount of water, or these other
Right.
things that are healthy, or if you want to build strength. Great, do these 5 things first, and then we can add in weightlifting or other types of exercise that are strength building exercises.
Or working on balance.
Or working on balance, right. There's any number of things that you can do to improve your health. But here's the thing that you have to know, and this is essential. No matter what you do, if you're not doing the fundamentals, it will fall. Your health will not be, you might think you're healthy, but if you're not doing those 5 fundamentals, your health is going to fall eventually,
Well, we go
because you
back
have
to
no foundation.
that block structure, right?
Yeah.
Or any building, you need that firm foundation. You can't build on sandy soil.
Right. And so these are the fundamentals of healthy living. And my recommendation to everybody out there is make sure you're doing these 5 things before you start adding other elements. Because other elements, I guarantee you, they will fail. Eventually, you may feel, like I say, wow, I'm doing so good. But eventually, they are going to fail if you don't have this foundation.
Yeah.
These are the 5 things that give you the foundation of a healthy life and allow you then to build on that through other healthy choices.
One question that just popped into my brain.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have to do these all together, or can you work on one at a time and get to that place
No,
where you get all 5 of them?
Right, you never want to, if you're not already, like if you're already doing 3 of them and you only have 2 that you need to work on, that's fine, you can work on. Never try to do more than 2 major goals at a time. You will, again, you overwhelm yourself and you're not going to be successful. 2 at a time is the most. So if you're not doing any of them, then choose 2 to start working on. If you're doing all but 1, then start working on that 1. If you're doing, 1 of them, then choose 2 of the other 4 to start working on. But don't work on more than 2 at a time, because it's very, very difficult to master more than 2 kind of contextual changes in our lives.
Right, and so then we go back to the change wheel, right,
Mm-hmm.
to help us with
Right.
those changes, which is a tool and a video that's on the website and,
Yeah.
and the app.
Yep, and you can use the change wheel to make these strengthen these behaviors.
Mhm.
And then that's really a lot of what we're doing is. And remember, here's the other thing to remember. We have 100% agency
Right.
when it comes to our actions, what we do. All 5 of these fundamentals we've just talked about, they're all actions.
They are all
They're all
actions.
things that we can choose to do. That's where we have agency. Now, one last thing I want to say about this too, that I hadn't even thought about, but I'm just thinking about it now.
All right.
And that is, when you do any of these, you should be consecrating them to the Lord. So when I'm reading my scriptures, I should be, at the very least in my mind, saying to Heavenly Father, I'm dedicating this scripture study to you. When I ran this morning, I was running this morning with my 2 sons and my daughter, and I did. As I started to run, I thought, Heavenly Father, I really want to dedicate this run to you. It's amazing too, because boy, Satan doesn't like that. He does not like it, and he will try so hard to distract your mind.
He puts so many stumbling blocks in our way for us
does.
to change and
He does.
be better people.
But what's so fascinating about it, though, is when you consecrate these actions to the Lord. So you can just do them, and you're going to be healthy because you do them. But if you consecrate them to the Lord, so you tell the Lord, I'm doing this for you as you go into it. That allows the Lord to sanctify you. You have to open the door. There's that picture of Jesus standing by the door and he's knocking, and there's no knob on the outside, because you have to open the door. The way we open that door is through consecration. We consecrate our actions to the Lord. That opens the door. The Spirit then can come in and can sanctify our thoughts and our feelings and our context and our unconscious. It can change us at those levels. And that's the wonderful thing. You've got 5 tools here that we've just taught you, that we've just talked about. Each one of those has the potential to sanctify you through the Holy Ghost if you are willing to consecrate those actions to the Lord. And I wish people understood, consecrating something to the Lord, really, you can do it simply by saying, I'm doing this for you. And
I was thinking about Hannah in the Bible, and when she consecrated her baby Samuel to the Lord,
right,
that's exactly what she did. She said, Lord, if you give me this baby, I will consecrate him to you.
Right, I will give him to you. And that's the thing is, if you give to the Lord, you're going to receive 5-fold, 10-fold, 100-fold what you've given. Now, if you just do the actions, you're still going to get the health benefits of the action.
Right.
But when you consecrate the action to the Lord, it will magnify those benefits 100-fold or more.
And that's what we want. And it'll keep Satan away.
It will keep it. It will keep Satan, it will keep, it will, what it will do is it will give us the strength to overcome Satan. You know, in fact, I was just reading in the book of Job. And there's that interaction between Satan and God.
Right.
And a lot of people struggle with that. Like, that's weird. Why is God giving Satan power to do all these things? And I think it's really a good metaphor for our lives. That God is telling us, he says, you know, Satan is not bound. He's
right.
unbound.
Right.
Which means actually we can't do anything to keep Satan away from us entirely. I mean, Jesus Christ was perfect and Satan was there tempting him.
That's right.
So we can't even say, wow, but if I'm perfect. No, even the most perfect person that ever lived was tempted by Satan. So we have to be careful and recognize when we do righteous things, when we do what the Lord wants us to do, it does not mean Satan that we keep Satan away, but what it means is we are given the strength that we need to overcome any temptation that Satan might bring.
That makes more sense.
So, but that's,
in a sense, it binds him.
Yeah, it's a common phrase that people will say that, oh, if you're doing this, it keeps Satan away. And I'm like, well, be careful with that.
Sometimes it seems like when you're doing something good and right, when you're going to the temple, there will be obstacles.
That's when Satan's
When
the most actively
Right,
involved in
right.
your life. That's when he's like, I don't, you know, so when I was running this morning and I was dedicating my run to the Lord, I could very strongly feel Satan's desire to tempt me to think outside of the, you know, of the gospel and to, you know, and you know, I was thinking about a movie, and all of a sudden this scene from the movie comes into my head, and I was like, that's not even a good scene. It's not even a movie that I've ever watched. It's just I've never seen the scene. I just know it's there because people have told me, and it's like, and yet that's what came to my mind, and I thought, Satan doesn't want this run dedicated to the Lord. He really didn't.
No.
And I had to actively get rid of that image and bring something else into my mind.
Mm-hmm.
But I had the strength to do that.
Because you consecrated it.
Because I had consecrated my run to the Lord, and Satan really was trying hard. And I'll tell you, the other thing is, it was hard.
Mm-hmm.
I was only running a 5K, which is not a lot for me, but for some reason today that 5K was a little bit difficult, and I thought, man, this is weird. But my point is, you're not gonna get rid of your trials. You're not gonna get rid of temptations. Those are all gonna be a part of your life. You're just going to be able to have the strength to overcome the temptations and to find joy in your trials.
Well, what else can we ask for?
So there we go. Those are our 5 fundamentals of healthy living. I hope that each of you will make an effort to implement these into your lives if you're not already doing them. If you are already doing these 5, then we are going to be teaching some future classes on healthy living that will be not the fundamentals, but some other healthy things that you can do to improve your life in certain areas in the future. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.